A win in the Kentucky Derby can turn a 3-year-old into a hero.
Down to the wire, Orb has won the Kentucky Derby!
And can catapult a racehorse into immortality.
American Burrow and Victor Espinoza have won the Kentucky Derby!
And for their sires, the race can define a legacy. A pair of Kentucky Derby hopefuls.
Gormley wins the said Anita Derby Classic Empire!
Have a chance to put their sire on the short list of stallions who have delivered multiple Derby winners, and a talented son of Bodemeister.
The 2017 Florida Derby to Todd Pletcher, and always dreaming,
can achieve redemption for his sire, who ran one of the biggest seconds in Derby history. This is the TVG Kentucky Derby Stallion Report.
The most exciting 2 minutes in racing is just 4 days away, the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby. Good morning and welcome to special Derby programming right here on TVG, America's Horse Racing Network. I'm Britney Eurton alongside Simon Bray. And Simon, over the next hour, we will be giving an in-depth look to the 22 contenders, obviously 2 also eligibles, and their sires. For you, what's the temperature right now of your Derby fever?
It's very, very hot. I need some medication, I think. But I tell you what, the industry is predicated on breeders, and it's based in Lexington. And we're going to break down each horse, 1 through 20, and take a look at these stallions and some of the statistics that they've shown and what they stand for and where they stand, the likelihood of them producing a Derby winner in Derby 143.
Here are the sires of the Kentucky Derby contenders this year. We'll have 2 pages worth. And Simon, surprisingly, no sire represented twice.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I think there's been a shift in the last couple of years. We've got some young sires making an impact, like Dialed In with Gunnevera, Helmet, who raced down in Australia. You don't see usually many Australian runners producing horses that are going to compete in the Kentucky Derby. Union Rag, so good in the Belmont several years ago. And then Uncle Mo, one of the hottest sires in the country right now, hopefully represented by Royal Mo.
Yeah, took down the Kentucky Derby last year with Nyquist. We
Yes.
actually see a lot of young sires, 5 first-crop sires represented in this year's Kentucky Derby. Now, these are the sires that have already sired a Kentucky Derby winner, as mentioned. Uncle Mo, who stands at Coolmore's Ashford stud just last year with the Nyquist, Pioneer of the Nile. We'll never forget that Triple Crown win. American Pharoah back in 2015. And Malibu Moon, such a strong sire for Spendthrift Farm, 2013 with Orb.
Yeah, tremendous for Pioneer of the Nile in such an early age as a stallion to get a Triple Crown winner, but he's well represented again this year.
You ready?
Yep,
Let's roll
let's do
right
it.
into it. We're going to kick it off with the top of the leaderboard. That is Gervin for trainer Joe Sharp. Now, he has been ultra impressive, undefeated on dirt. Have a few hiccups over the past few weeks dealing with a quarter crack, but all systems are pointing towards go. He has come back, had a sensational work recently in this past week, so we'll look forward to seeing what he does as he is atop of the leaderboard. Now, before he achieved all that, bred in Kentucky by Bob Austin and John White, he was purchased for $130,000 by Grand Oaks as a yearling. You can see as we take a look at the family tree by Tale of a Cotty out of a Malibu Moon mare. Now, the dam Catch the Moon also produced graded stakes winner Cocked and Loaded, and this is from the extended family of grade 1 winning sprinter. Yes, it's true. So from the female side, at least, we're definitely seeing some stamina, Simon, from the Malibu Moon, but of course, Tale of a Cotty.
Tale of a Cowdy, one of most inexpensive stallions, but that doesn't mean much. He stands for $7,500 at Derby Dam, but his 2-year-olds this year, 6 of them have sold for an average of $51,000. That's 8 times the stud fee. Of course, he won the Wood, the Cigar Mile. He won from 5.5 to 9 furlongs. And more importantly, on his dam side, Brittany, he's from the family of Sky Beauty, that tremendous mare trained by Alan Jerkins. Also deep in the pedigree, the Phipps family of Pleasant Hope, Grade 1 winner, Point of Entry, and Pine Island. And he's had 2 champions already from 4 crops. Tale of a Cowdy, cheap at $7,500 in 2017 at Derby Dam.
Yeah, quite the affordable pricing
Yep.
as what Gervin has gone on to do. Standing, as you mentioned, $7,500 at Derby Dan Farm in Lexington, Kentucky. Now, their racing success goes all the way back to the 1930s. They house the likes of Swaps, who really helped stamp Derby Dan as a top breeder. They're also going to be represented this year by Gunnevera through their first crop sire, Dialed In. It doesn't get more beautiful than that. Tale of a Cotty standing at Darby Dan Farm. Next up will be Classic Empire, who will be, I would think, your likely favorite in this year's Kentucky Derby. Now, he is by Pioneer of the Nile, as we mentioned earlier, also the sire of Triple Crown winner American Pharaoh. Now, coming into his 3-year-old season, he seemed to be on top of the world as he took down the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he ran a surprising third in the Holy Bull, had a little bit of complications, was refusing to work, but came back with an impressive effort in the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. Looks primed for another big effort for the first Saturday in May. Now, he was bred in Kentucky by Stephen and Brandy Nicholson, purchased for $475,000 by John Oxley at the Keeneland September yearling sale. And as we see with the family tree here by Pioneer of the Nile, out of a Cat Thief mare. Now, Cat Thief took down the Breeders' Cup Classic in '99 and Sambuca Classic. She's produced 4 winners from as many starters, and he really answered any sort of distant questions you had posed by the bottom side of the pedigree. Stamina across the board, I see.
You're exactly right, Brittany. Top and bottom. Stamina on the top side. Star of Goshen, the dam of Pioneer of the Nile. Very good filly. She won the La Troyenne at Keeneland, but Pioneer of the Nile, definitely no distance limitations in his pedigree. And then you got Sambuca Classic, as you mentioned, by Cat Thief as well. Pioneer of the Nile, commercially represented this year by 14 2-year-olds that sold at auction for an average of $259,000. He had a $1 million 2-year-old, a $700,000 2-year-old, a $550,000 2-year-old. So he stood for $110,000 this year at WinStar, one of 22 stallions standing at that operation. And again, he himself was second in that 2009 Kentucky Derby.
WinStar Farm in Versailles, Kentucky. They know what it takes to breed a Kentucky Derby winner. They took it down in 2003 with Funny Side and 2010 with Super Saver. And just last year, they were named the Eclipse Award winner for Outstanding Breeder in 2016. If you have not been to WinStar Farm, it is a must go to. Next up in line, Gormley by Malibu Moon. He was our Santa Anita Derby winner for Jerry and Ann Moss, and Victor Espinoza trying to take down his 4th Kentucky Derby. Prior to that, a bit of a head-scratching performance behind Mastery in the San Felipe really turned things back around, and I think a lot of that had to do with the tactics that Victor Espinoza employed in the Santa Anita Derby. Now, they're hoping to have 2 entrants also with Royal Mo. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but he was bred in Kentucky by Castleton Lions and Killboy Estate, and he was actually a buyback for $150,000. So it was a private purchase for Jerry and Ann Moss. As we take a look at the family tree by Malibu Moon out of a Bernstein mare. Now the female family is laden with class and stamina, but on the turf course. And the 3rd dam, Estropade, who is a champion who took down 5 Grade 1 victories. So obviously, we know he has an affinity for the dirt. Who knows what he would do on the turf course?
Exactly. I mean, he's got a superb pedigree. You mentioned those tactics, taking him off the pace, certainly seemed to be beneficial in the Santa Anita Derby. Malibu Moon for $75,000 this year. Lifetime, he's had 39 graded stakes winners for earnings of $95 million. He had 13 2-year-olds sell at auction this year for an average of $3.4 million for a $260,000 average. He had a $675,000 colt sale, a $650,000 filly. And in last year, Britney had 45 yearlings sell for an average of $230,000 and $10 million total. He's the 5th leading sire this year nationally, and he has certainly got a great pedigree, and also the broodmare sire of Gervin, of course.
Yeah, sire, the 2013 Kentucky Derby winner, Orb, and it's impressive to think with Malibu Moon, didn't do much on the racetrack, but man, his progeny just he's stamping his progeny with a lot of talent. Yeah,
well, he's by AP&D. I mean, a tremendous pedigree, top and bottom out, a Grade 1 winning mare, Macumba, and a very, very valuable commodity. Stands at Spendthrift, $75,000 this year.
Beat Wayne Hughes, Spendthrift Farm in Lexington, Kentucky, the Breeders' Farm. Now, they actually acquired the breeding rights to Gormley upon retirement. They've been looking for a strong son of Malibu Moon to add to their roster, and that will be Gormley. And they're also represented by Practical Joke, who is by Into Mischief, which we'll get to in just a bit. Moving forward to Irap, who surprised everyone in the Bluegrass, becoming the first maiden to win for trainer Doug O'Neill. Now, these connections know how to win a Kentucky Derby. Paul Redham, Doug O'Neill, Mario Gutierrez. They did it last year with Nyquist, and of course a few years ago with All Have Another. Now it's going to be interesting. This horse put forth sort of a dud of a performance, but in the Sunland Derby, but really took to the Keeneland race course in the Bluegrass. Now when we look at the breeding, bred in Kentucky by Aaron and Mary Jones and was purchased for $300,000 by Dennis O'Neill, one of the top bloodstock agents and does most of Doug's buying. This was purchased at a 2-year-old in training sale. Now by Tiznow out of a Stormcat mare. And the dam, Silken Cat, was a Canadian champion juvenile filly. And also make note that this horse is a half to Eclipse Award sprinter Speightstown.
Speaking of 2-year-old in training sales, Tiznow had a 2-year-old in training sale this year. The highest priced 2-year-old in training sold at auction this year, $2.4 million. What a return on investment with Tiznow standing at $60,000. He also had 11 other 2-year-olds sell for an average of $398,000 lifetime. He's had 14 Grade 1 winners, 37 graded stakes winners for total earnings of $74 million. The back-to-back Breeders' Cup Classic champ has passed that ability onto his offspring, and there are some of the top progeny, well-armed, of course, Dubai World Cup winner Tourist, Colonel John, and Tisway. True champion.
Stamina, stamina, stamina.
Yes.
Is what I think of when I think of Tiznow. Absolutely. Stands for $60,000 in 2017 at Windstar Farm. And as we mentioned earlier, they're going to be represented through their stallions by Classic Empire, Irap, and Always Dreaming. But as an owner, Battle of Midway, they recently purchased from Fox Hill Farms a part interest in Battle of Midway with Don Alberto Stable. So we'll be discussing that one a little bit later. Irish War Cry by the top sire, Curlin, really making a name for himself in the past few years. For trainer Graham Motion, also knows how to win a Kentucky Derby, did so with Animal Kingdom. This horse, ultra impressive in the Wood Memorial last time out, and from all accounts, just absolutely loving it out there at Churchill Downs. Yes,
he breezed at Fairhill earlier this week, shipped to Churchill Downs, settled in well, and of course he came out of a poor performance and went into the Wood. Many people were skeptical of him, but he rebounded nicely, and he's become a legitimate threat once again. He's back on the radar of many people.
He's bred in New Jersey by owner Isabel de Tomaso. Now, last New Jersey bred to win the Kentucky Derby, 1934 with Cavalcade. Prior to that, 1915 with Regret. As you can see, the family tree by Curlin out of a Polish numbers mare. Now, Irish Sovereign, the dam, never ran past 6 furlongs, but if you see further back in the pedigree, he has roots to some European champions, Epsom Derby winner Cydium. Now, Curlin really helps to balance out that pedigree.
It certainly does, and he's got off to a great start. He stood for $150,000 this year at Hillendale Farm, and they announced just yesterday, in the last 24 hours, they went ahead, and a group of owners, including John Secure of Hillendale, Glen Hill Farm, SF Bloodstock, Colts Neck Stable, Bobby Flay and China Horse Club, Sol Cumin and Vinnie Viola, all big names in the sport right now. They made a purchase agreement for Irish War Cry to stand at Hillendale at the conclusion of his racing career. You see that a lot. You see a farm standing aside, and then they're looking for a long-term replacement with the similar bloodlines. Irish War Cry will be standing at Hillendale at the end of his racing career. 2016, Curlin had 53 yearlings sell for $11.9 million. That was an average of $225,000 a yearling, including a $1 million colt that sold at the Keeneland September sale.
Top progeny, Exaggerator, second in the Kentucky Derby last year, won the Preakness last year as well. Palace Malice, your Belmont Stakes winner, Keen Ice, who upset the Great American Pharaoh, and of course, Stellar Wind, who just took down the Grade 1 Apple Blossom. Stands at Hillendale Farm. Doesn't get any prettier than that in Lexington, Kentucky. And he didn't always stand there, actually. Owner Stone Street Stables announced just last year, that was his first year at Hillendale, that Curlin would be relocated. And John Secure, the owner of Hillendale Farm, saying he's a once-in-a-long-time kind of prospect. That transfer has paid off.
He's the type of stallion that makes a farm, that puts a farm on the map. Hillendale was already on the map, but he takes it to the next level. And you've seen all these shots of these beautiful farms. By the way, you can go, if you're in Lexington, just call up these farms and you can get a tour. They're not restricted to people in the industry. A lot of them very accommodating. Make the call to the farm that you want to go see, and they'll probably let you have a look around, look at some of the stallions.
They're so accommodating.
Yeah.
And they're all so close.
Right.
You know, even though these farms are massive, you really can
catch
a few of them, see some of your favorite stallions, maybe some of your favorite mares like Beholder, who's at Spendthrift Farm. So definitely, if you happen to make it out to Kentucky, visit some of these farms. We're going to take a short time out. When we come back, we'll continue on through the Kentucky Derby leaderboard.
Epicharis
Jarvis in front. Thundersnow lunges again, and I think one in the last possible gasp.
It was a thrilling finish in the UAE Derby. Thundersnow comes out on top for Godolphin, but Simon, they made us sweat out their decision whether or not he was going to be in the starting gate the first Saturday in May.
They didn't make the announcement until I saw him coming off the van at Churchill Downs. Said bin Suroor took him from Dubai back to Newmarket, been training well, and finally they made a decision. This was a main goal of Sheikh Mohammed for a long, long time, to get a horse to go to Dubai, prep there, come back and be successful in the Kentucky Derby. It didn't work out. They've been absent for many years, but I think this is a good year to try and bring a contender back, and they've done so with Thundersnow. It's
really a wide open event. Now, horses exiting the UAE Derby 0 for 12 when it comes to even hitting the board, but I like the chances of Thundersnow. He just ran a mile and a 3/16 as we take a look at the pedigree. This is a homebred for Darley by Helmet out of a Dubai destination mare who's been a highly respected broodmare sire. And the dam Eastern Joy, nothing spectacular on the racetrack, but did produce 4 foals who are all stakes winners. Really gets an affinity for the dirt from the female family.
This just shows, this pedigree here, how global and international horse racing has become in the last 15 to 20 years, particularly thanks to Godolphin and Sheikh Mohammed. Helmet, many of you North American viewers probably don't recognize that name. He was raced in Australia. He stands at Dalham Hall Stud in Newmarket for Darley. He was a 3-time grade winner, won 2 grade 1s as a 2-year-old and the Caulfield Guineas as a 3-year-old. He was the best 2-year-old by Exceed and Excel, who's one of the best sires in Australia of 2-year-olds, so he had plenty of potential, and he had 16 winners in Europe last season. He stands at Darley for £10,000. That equates to about just shy of $13,000 US, and his first crop of 3-year-olds this year, and he's well represented with Thundersnow.
Group 1 winner on turf, undefeated on dirt. Now we make it to what seems like the buzz horse, Always Dreaming for trainer Todd Pletcher. Undefeated as a 3-year-old, undefeated for trainer Todd Pletcher. Very impressive winner of the Florida Derby by 5 lengths last time out. But he's been a bit of a handful at Churchill Downs.
Yes, he has. Look, he trained beautifully at Palm Meadows. He ran one of the fastest Florida Derbies ever, actually, since 1978. It was the fastest mile and eighth of any 3-year-old this year. You see him behind me, blowing out, easy win that day. Been training well at Palm Meadows. He gets up to Churchill Downs. He's become very, very aggressive this week. He had a very sharp workout, quick for trainer Todd Pletcher. He doesn't work his horses fast, but they've made an equipment train. They've put some draw reins and changed the exercise rider in a bit to slow him down with 5 days left.
Bred in Kentucky by Santa Rosa Partners and sold for $350,000 at the Keeneland September yearling sale, purchased by Brooklyn Boys Stable and Teresa Viola et al. And the family trees you can see here by Bodemeister out of an In Excess mare. And the dam above perfection. She won her place in 5 stakes races between 6 and 7 furlongs. And she also produced grade 1 winner and the speedy filly, Hot Dixie Chick. So the speed definitely coming from the bottom half.
Certainly, and Bodemeister, although, you know, he was a distance horse, he was plenty quick enough as well. Trained by Bob Baffert, he liked to lay close in his races. Of course, he's been well represented at the sales this year. He's had a colt sell at the 2-year-old in training sales for $525,000 and one for $750,000. Very talented racehorse, cheap at the price, standing at Windstar, $25,000. And he's just one, as I mentioned, those 23 stallions that stand at that stallion factory known as Windstar. Top progeny this year, Always Dreaming, Bodie's Dream, and he was second in the Derby and the Preakness. Very talented racehorse, and he's passed it on to his offspring.
Standing at Windstar Farm in Versailles, Kentucky, and you'll never forget those sales. They took down the Belmont Stakes last year with Creator. Next up in line, Gunnavera.
Yeah.
By another first crop sire, Dialed In. Now, he was 3rd in the Florida Derby, and he won the Fountain of Youth by almost 6 lengths. He has quite a bit of experience underneath his belt, took down the Saratoga Special at 2, and he has a nice late closing kick.
He does. He reminds me of his sire, the way he runs. Dialed In, of course, won the Florida Derby in very similar fashion. Great story here as well with trainer Antonio Sano, coming in from Valenzuela. Remember, well-publicized, kidnapped a couple of times, looked to start his life again and bring his family here in the U.S., and he has been so accommodating to the media. And I tell you, to get a horse like this with a fairly young sire and Dialed In, it's been very, very good for Darby Dan Farm, and there's the pedigree.
Bred in Kentucky by Brandywine Farm and Stephen Upchurch, and was purchased for $16,000 by trainer Antonio Sano on behalf of Peacock Racing Stable. Now, this is, as mentioned, the first crop for Dialed In out of an unbridled mare who took down the Kentucky Derby in 1990. Unbridled did. And the dam Unbridled Rage, in her 13th attempt Shibor Stakes winner Gunnevere. It isn't often that you see so late for a mare to produce a horse of this stature.
You're exactly right. And great pedigree through dialed in. His granddam was Eliza, champion 2-year-old for Alan Paulson and Alex Hassinger. So there's speed influence there. There's some stamina influence there. He was the #1 first crop sire last year. He's the #4 second crop sire this year. And he's had 8 2-year-olds sell at the auctions this year in 2017 for an average of $129,000. That's not bad when he only stands for $15,000. And he had a horse sell for $460,000. That was a colt, so well represented commercially. Gunnevere and It's Your Nickel, some of his best offspring this year.
And Gunnevere truly been a miracle. Just 10 days after he was foaled, the mare did pass away due to foaling complications, so he had to go to a nursing mare. And so for him to do what he's done thus far, already a miracle. And he stands, dialed in stands at Darby Dam Farm, as mentioned, for $15,000. Well represented this year by both Gervin and Gunnevere. And I actually just read today that Darby Dan gave the breeders a free stallion season, actually after Gunnevere won the Saratoga Special.
Maybe lightning will strike twice for that group.
Sometimes it does, right?
Yeah.
Next up, Practical Joke by Into Mischief for trainer Chad Brown. So we'll be touching on that in just a few moments after the break. Stay tuned. We'll get through the rest of the leaderboard when we come back. This is fun.
I love it.
Welcome back to TVG's Stallion Report for the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby. Next up in line that we're zeroing in on, Practical Joke by Into Mischief for trainer Chad Brown. Now this horse very precocious as a 2-year-old, won his first 3 starts, including the Champagne and the Hopeful. Those were all 1 turn, those. We were wondering what he was going to do around 2 turns. Second in the Bluegrass, not a poor performance, but was beaten by maiden winner Irap.
Was, but he'll win the beauty pageant come Derby 143. Look at him. He's a gorgeous-looking individual there, trained by Chad Brown, being by Into Mischief. Great pedigree. And Into Mischief, of course, as we well know, have to behold him.
Bred in Kentucky by Whispering Oaks Farm and was purchased for $240,000 at the Keeneland September yearling sale by Into Mischief out of a Distorted Humor mare. Now, Distorted Humor, a multiple graded stakes sprinter and miler, and what a top young broodmare sire he's been of Constitution and Arrogate.
And Into Mischief, I tell you, the credentials and the stats, you could stand here for a whole show listing them off. He was the leading sire of 3-year-olds this year by wins, winners, and earnings. He sired 20 black type winners, 10 graded stakes winners, and 4 millionaires in his career. And that's 7 crops, producing 3 champions. And this year he had 2-year-olds in training sale for $600,000, $350,000, and $500,000, just to name a few. Standing at Spendthrift, $75,000.
And his dam, Leslie's Lady, was just announced as Broodmare of the Year. So congratulations to Spendthrift, so everything that they have achieved thus far. And actually Into Mischief, he went to stud in 2009, stood for $15,000. Now, because of all of his success, $75,000 in 2017. And Spendthrift Farm, they're going to be represented, as we've already touched on, by Gormley, as they've acquired the breeding rights there, the son of Malibu Moon, as well as Practical Joke by Into Mischief. Absolutely beautiful there, Simon. That is one farm that I have not been to that I'm dying to go.
Yeah, I need to make the call. Hopefully that can happen in the Keeneland Fall Meet. Make a trip out to Spendthrift, hopefully.
B. Wayne Hughes will be calling you. I need to visit Beholder. Next up in line is J-Boy's Echo by Mineshaft. Now, he was 4th in the Bluegrass, but his best performance was 2-back in the Gotham in New York. I'm confused about the performance last time out, and it's unfortunate because he's going to get a new jockey as well.
He is. Of course, Robbie Alvarado went to the sidelines with an injury, and unfortunately, that's not the first time that happened to him. Happened with Animal Kingdom. He missed the win mount on him. J-Boy's Echo by Mineshaft out of a Menifee mare. And Mineshaft, of course, the sire of 43 stakes winners. It
was purchased by Alba Family Stable for $485,000 at the Keeneland September yearling sale. And they actually had the horse, not this time, who was 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Juveniles. That horse being retired, so now they've got J-Boy's Echo that's going to be carrying their flag for the Kentucky Derby. Best of luck to them. State of Honor by First Crop Sire to honor and serve, maybe a little bit in the shadow of his stablemate, Classic Empire. he has an affinity for running second, but you got to say that he shows up each and every time. As we're taking a look at, he was second in the Florida Derby behind the talented Always Dreaming.
Yes, exactly. I mean, second in the Florida Derby, second in the Tampa Bay Derby. He's there or thereabouts. Maybe he's not quite the top echelon of 3-year-olds, but he's knocking at the door, and he's got the right running style as well. Kind of sits off the pace and makes a move late.
He's bred in Ontario by Manfred and Penny Conrad of Conrad Farms, who do own him. Family tree by To Honor and Serve out of an elusive quality mare. Now, the Dam State Cup, she was unraced, but she is also a half-cis to Grade 2 winner, St. Averill, who took down the Santa Catalina at 1 mile and a 16th.
Yeah, good pedigree, top and bottom. To Honor and Serve, he's one of 8 sires at Gainesway. He's a full brother to $3.4 million earner Angela Renee. Had 4 stakes performers as his freshman year in 2016. And this year he had a two-year-old colt that sold for $200,000. To Honor and Serve, good performer on the racetrack and starting to make his mark as a stallion.
He was always one of my favorite horses to watch, so I was looking forward to seeing what his progeny did on the racetrack, and State of Honor representing him well. Stands at Gainesway Farm for $10,000. Top progeny includes also Blue Ridge Traveler. You know, Gainesway Farm, power, passion, and performance. That's their mission statement, Simon. That is strong, and it's absolutely, I think, what Gainesway stands for.
So, you know, not a big roster like Windstar, who have 23 stallions, a smaller number, but they're well represented with horses like To Honor and Serve. And Tapwrit, who we're going to get into next.
Exactly, Tapwrit by the mighty Tapwrit. We always say Gainesway, the home of Tapwrit, leading sire the past 3 years in a row. So Tapwrit, he's our Tampa Bay Derby winner, a bit of a confusing 5th in the Bluegrass, but to be honest, most of the confusing performances we've seen have been in that race.
They were, with the maiden winning the race. McCracken was coming back, trying to, you know, get back on track in the Bluegrass, but Tapwrit, winner of the Tampa Bay Derby, where McCracken was on the sidelines, maybe he can rebound. Look, we've seen horses that didn't win the Bluegrass, like Street Sense, go on to win the Kentucky Derby. Remember, these are prep races. We don't point for the preps. The big day is the first Saturday in May.
One of 3 horses for trainer Todd Pletcher. At one point in time, he almost had 5.
Yep.
So I know he's holding the hopes with here Tapwrit, as well as Always Dreaming and Patch. Now, he's bred in Kentucky by My Meadowview LLC, purchased for $1.2 million as a yearling. Now, that ranked 4th among Tapwrit's 2015 yearlings. By Tapwrit out of a successful appeal mare who did her best work sprinting. She was a multiple graded stakes winner. The Dam, Appealing Zophie, took down the Grade 1 Spinaway and the Grade 3 Silver Bullet Day.
This is a true classic pedigree in that you have speed and stamina. That's the mark of a true racehorse, right? A horse that can get 1.25 miles, but also has a little bit of tactical speed. The good horses like Ghostzapper win from 6 furlongs all the way up to 1.25 miles. Tapwrit, of course, as you mentioned, leading sire last 3 years, 5 Grade 1 winners in 2016. He had 7 2-year-olds sell this year for an average of $493 million, including a filly that topped out at $1.1 million and a colt for $875,000. Last year at the yearling auctions, $27 million worth of Tapwrit yearlings sold for an average of $679,000. He is the hottest sire by far, and he stands for $300,000 at Gainesway.
Broodmare sire of Unwrapped, who will be running the Kentucky Derby, and the grand sire of Fast and Accurate and Unwrapped. Top progeny Unbridled Bell, Untappable, Frosted, Hanson. The list goes on and on with Tapwrit. Stands for $300,000 at Gainesway, but his initial stud fee, $15,000. Talk about a bargain way back then.
$15,000 to $300,000, just a matter of years. Unbelievable surgence in the stallion ranks.
Extremely successful. That is Tapwrit, stands at Gainesway Farm. Next up will be one of the Calumet homebreds, and hence by Street Boss. Now, he won the Sunland Derby by 3 3/4 lengths. Now, that horse, I mean, that race has become quite a live race. Conquest Mo Money coming back to run well, and Irap taking down the Bluegrass.
Exactly. Key race, big purse, and hence comes into the Kentucky Derby straight out of that race you're watching behind me. It was a very good performance. You mentioned one of 3 runners for Calumet. Steve Asmussen trains this horse, and not without a long shot chance in here.
One of 3 runners for Calumet Farm as their homebreds, and they're looking for their 9th win as an owner and 9th win as a breeder. By Street Boss out of an AP Indy mare. Now, Floating Island, the Dam, she had 2 seconds out of 6 starts, but the 3rd Dam, Alla Dancer, as you can see there, was a multiple stakes winner. To me, this just screams this horse can run all day long. By AP Indy?
No question. Absolutely no question about that. You mentioned Tapwrit standing for $15,000. This horse, Street Boss, only stands for $17,500, and he's already produced a Kentucky Oaks winner last year in Catherine Sophia. He finished in the top 20 stallions this year with 32 winners from 93 runners already in 2017. and he had a 2-year-old sell this year for $300,000. And remember this name. They've already named that 2-year-old. Get the play on words. He's by Street Boss, and the 2-year-old named Tony Soprano.
Oh,
look for him, a son of Street Boss. Yes.
Were you a Sopranos fan?
Oh, big time.
Oh, big time.
Big time,
I bet. Yeah. He met multiple speed records. Now at Darley America, they call him Street Cry's fastest son ever, and he stands at Darley Jonah Bell Farm for $17,500. And Darley represented by Thundersnow and Hens. Absolutely stunning out there in Lexington, Kentucky. And talk about a global operation in Darley.
Big time. Darley America, Darley Europe, Darley Australia, and they're represented in Japan as well.
Taking over.
Yes.
When we come back, we will continue on through the leaderboard. We'll meet the likes of McCracken for Ian Wilkes. Now, he has got some sensational training, being the assistant to Hall of Famer Carl Nasker. We'll see if he can turn that 3rd place finish in the Bluegrass into a win in the Kentucky Derby. Now, McCracken by Ghostzapper stands at Adena Springs Farms. We'll be back. You don't want to miss what we've got coming up next.
It's Fast and Accurate, who has the lead by a length and a half. Through from between horses, Convict Pike is gaining, and down the center, here comes Kitten's Cat. They have a 16th of a mile still to go. Fast and Accurate still up top. Convict Pike lunging to the inside. Kitten's Cat to the outside. Blue Lids Traveler along the rail. Fast and Accurate wins the Spiral Stakes by almost a length.
Fast and Accurate, your Spiral Stakes winner. There was no question in Dr. Kendall Hansen's mind whether or not they were coming to the Kentucky Derby. Afterwards, he was asked if they were coming. Expletive, yeah.
No question with him. He's a character, Dr. Kendall Hansen. Remember, he tried to paint Hansen's tail blue before the Bluegrass back in his 3-year-old year, but Hansen not standing here in the U.S. now. He's been relocated to Korea.
I think they should have been allowed to paint his tail blue.
You think so?
Yeah.
Do whatever you want.
I'm in favor of that. Why not, right? And now Kendall Jansen, he's joined by Skychai Racing as he was previously with Hansen, and Bodie Miller, Olympic skier, will be joining in too, and I believe his first Kentucky Derby starter.
Yeah, I believe so. That's right. Unfortunately, Hansen, after 1 season at stud, you never see this very often, Britney, a horse relocated from Ashford to Korea, and this is the sole representation we have of Hansen now in the U.S.
We'll get back to that because we got to look at the tree first. Bred in Pennsylvania by John Penn, purchases a 2-year-old for $85,000 and now has made over $340,000, as mentioned by Hansen, out of a Green Dancer mare who was unraced. And the dam, it's Heidi's Dance. 5 foals, 3 of those winners. Yeah, Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, and there was a clause in the contract written that if he turned out to be very, very successful in the U.S., there's a chance that he could come back and stand here, but they were offered so much money that they bought him back. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, this is the only representation of Hansen now in the U.S. I don't know, if you're on the Dr. Kendall Hansen mailing list, these have been going out left, right, and center the last couple of months. He sent these out. There you go. Fast and mini
accurate.
Fast and Accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
I want one. That's adorable.
Oh, there's a whole bomb full out there in the newsroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to take them all. Share them with everybody. Fast and Accurate. Moving forward to McCracken, undefeated going into the Bluegrass for trainer Ian Wilkes, and a 3rd place finish. But he said, you know what? For me, it's a monkey off my back a little bit, not going into the Kentucky Derby undefeated. And we saw that happen with a horse that he was very close to previously in Street
Yes,
Sense.
with his Street Sense, and of course he was around Unbridled as well as the exercise rider for trainer Carl Nasker. So look, as a rookie trainer, it's very hard to go through the Kentucky Derby. And Ian Wilkes hasn't been there as a trainer in his own right, but he's been there as an assistant and very closely associated with some good horses in Unbridled and Street Sense. So I have no problem with Ian Wilkes, his training, the way he's going to get him there, and he said the Bluegrass wasn't the goal. He wanted to improve out of that Bluegrass effort, and I think he will.
Now, McCracken was bred in Kentucky by Witham Thoroughbreds, and they are actually the owners as well, so a homebred for them by Ghostzapper out of a Seeking the Gold mare. Now, Seeking the Gold as a broodmare sire, very successful. Blame, Questing, Take Charge Brandy, among others. And the dam Ivory Empress, now she never won beyond 6.5 furlongs, but is a half-sister to Grade 1 winning router Mia Domina and produced Grade 3 place turf router Bondurant. So I'd say no issues there with the distance.
And there is the great Ghostzapper, trained by the late, great Bobby Frankel. I touched on this earlier in the show, Brittany, a Grade 1 winner from 6 furlongs to 1.25 miles. That is rare quality. This year he's had 4 graded stakes winners, 2 Grade 1 winners. He's ranked 4th in the nation with earnings of $4 million already this year with his offspring. 7 2-year-olds sold this year for an average of $280,000, including a filly that was purchased for $800,000 and a colt for $400,000. Through his first 8 crops on the racetrack, he sired 53, count them, 53 graded stakes winners.
And you can just see by the top progeny how they can go anywhere from the sprinter like Judy the Beauty to Shaman Ghost, who took down 1.25 miles. Most recently at Santa Anita and Moreno, Speedy Colt there. So they can really do anything. Ghostzapper stands at Adena Springs for $75,000 in 2017. And in Paris, Kentucky, that wasn't the original location of Adena Springs. You want a fun fact here, Simon?
Sure.
The farm was named after the Adena Indians. Now, those were the oldest known inhabitants of the land where the original farm was located.
That's right. I knew that.
You did know that.
Just slipped my mind.
Sure you did.
Just
they also have Adena North, where most of their Ontario breds are, so all over.
And a farm in Ocala, too, Adena South as well.
Look forward to McCracken by Ghostzapper. Next up, Battle of Midway by the late Smart Strike. Now, we mentioned earlier this horse trained by Jerry Hollendorfer, getting a couple of new connections there in the sense of Windstar Farm and Don Alberto's stable buying this horse from Fox Hill Farms. And Flavian Pratt will get his very first Derby mount. This horse, a hard-fought second-place finish in the Santa Anita Derby.
Very, very good effort in the Santa Anita Derby. And look, I know the time was slow, but still ran well. And as you mentioned, was part of that early pace and involved, so did well to hang around late by Smart Strike, who himself well-bred out of Classian Smart, Hall of Fame mare in Canada, and Smart Strike was a half to Canadian Triple Crown champion Don Smartley. He sired 113 stakes winners and 12 champions before he passed in 2015. 4 Breeders' Cup winners, of course. He's the sire of Curlin as well.
He was purchased for $410,000. This is Battle of Midway as a yearling by Fox Hill Farm. So best of luck to them. Obviously, again, first Derby mount for Flavian Pratt. And I think they're going to change up the tactics, actually. I don't think he's going to be on the pace anymore.
You take him back, I think. Probably, yep.
Exactly. Patch is one of the most heartwarming stories, I think, when we talk about the first Saturday in May. He only has one eye, and ironically enough, was named prior to losing his eye.
Yeah, he was named Patched at birth, or relatively soon after it, because of his pedigree. Unfortunately, he went into trainer Todd Pletcher's barn, then developed an ulcer in his eye, went back to the farm, and it didn't get better. Surgically had his left eye removed, and it doesn't seem to bother him, according to Todd. He's back in full training, been running well.
He says, I don't really want to spook him, but he acts like any other horse that has 2 eyes. So he was second in the Louisiana Derby, which we just showed you, and unraced it too. Are you a fan, or do you believe in the Apollo curse?
I do. Look, statistics, this game is built on statistics more and more so recently, I think, as the advent of being analytical in all sports. But yeah, that's a very tough thing to overcome, not having raced it too. I mean, it's just played out year after year after year.
It's by Union Rags out of an AP Ending mare, and the dam Windy Indy also produced graded stakes winner Tiz Indy, who took down the Indiana Oaks Stamina.
And Union Rags, his first 2-year-olds included 2 Grade 1 winners. In this year, he's had 21 2-year-olds sell for $247,000 average, including a colt for $950,000 that is named Patino, after the coach of the University of Louisville basketball team, Patino. Look for him running soon at a racetrack near you.
And you saw the top progeny on there. Paradise Woods actually set as your 5-2 morning line favorite for the Kentucky Oaks. Drew post position 4 for trainer
Good post.
Richard Mandel.
Very good post.
Great post. Moving forward to Untrapped by Trap Shot for trainer Steve Asmussen. In the beginning, this was a horse that was on the outside looking in, but with the defections, does make it into the Kentucky Derby starting gate. Now, as we're seeing here, he hasn't won since breaking his maiden at Churchill Downs sprinting, but he's placed in the LeCompte, Risen Star, the Rebel, so he's been showing up.
Exactly. He's been collecting points. He's kind of like the blue-collar horses you see here in the Rebel Stakes, just picking up points. By Trap Shot, again, you see the influence of Tapwrit on the top side there.
He's everywhere.
Yep.
Bred in Kentucky by Indian Creek and Jonathan Shepard, and was purchased for $150,000 at the Keeneland September yearling sale by Trap Shot out of a Giants Causeway mare. At the dam, exit 3, unraced, but Untrapped, doing well on the racetrack.
Very affordable Trap Shot, $7,500. He's had 32 winners from 82 runners this year, and yearlings have sold for up to $600,000. And his 2-year-olds in training have gone for as high as $280,000. That's a great return when you're thinking he only stands for $7,500.
We're going to take a short break here on the Stallion Report on TVG, but when we come back, we have a couple also eligibles to look at as well. Take a look at the beautiful Darby Dan Farm. They're represented by Gunnevera. Dialed in.
Looking at Lucky is the leader. Super Saver is spent. First dude fights on. Bailey Jackson run between horses. You want to twist upset chance in the far outside. Wild finish coming. Looking at Lucky, first dude, Jackson Ben. Looking at Lucky, here's Jackson Ben at first dude. Looking at Lucky, got it.
Trainer Bob Baffert called him looking at unlucky after the Kentucky Derby. Rough trip there, but really turned things around in the Preakness with new and young rider at the time, Martin Garcia. And he is the sire of our next horse in focus, Looking at Lee. Yeah,
Looking at Lee. He's kind of a horse that's been under the radar a little bit. He's improving. Take a look at it here, galloping nicely for trainer Steve Asmussen. So all of Asmussen horses look like that. They look fantastic.
He was a bubble horse for a while.
He
Wasn't really sure if he was going to get
Yep.
in, and with a couple of defections, did make his way into the starting gate. Now, he was a monster third, in my opinion, in that Arkansas Derby. One of potentially 4 horses for Steve Asmussen. Looking at Lee, bred in Kentucky by Ray Hansen, and was purchased for $70,000 at the Keeneland September yearling sale by L&N Racing. By Looking at Lucky out of a Langford mare, who is a multiple Grade 1 winner, sprinter, miler, and Langara Lass, multiple stakes winner at Hastings, and she was 3rd in a Grade 3. So nice pedigree there.
Yeah, you mentioned that Arkansas Derby effort from Looking at Lee. He kind of reminds me like Creator, last year's winner of the Belmont from the same barn. Same running style, comes from off the pace. Looking at Lucky, through his first 3 crops, he's had 17 black type winners, 5 graded stakes winners, and a remarkable 47% of his foals have been winners that have hit the racetrack. 47% that have hit the racetrack have gone on to end up in the winner's circle.
Wow, impressive. Now, Looking at Lucky stands at Coolmore's Ashford stud for $17,500 in 2017. And you can see his top progeny made from Lucky, Accelerate, a nice John Sadler trainee, Lucky Player, and Breakin' Lucky. There's a trend there with what people name the progeny. Looking at Lucky. As mentioned, stands at Coolmore's Ashford Stud in Lexington, Kentucky, really the heart of Kentucky, owned by John Magnier. Now, they opened their doors in 1982, had such stallions as Stormbird, Thunder Gulch, Giant's Causeway, Uncle Mo, and of course, American Pharaoh, who will be shuttling to Coolmore, Australia. Yeah,
Ashford, you know, their focus the last several years has been, you know, picking up the champion 2-year-old. They did it with American Pharaoh, they did it with Hansen. They like to stand those horses that show so much ability at 2.
Another international success that is Coolmore. Next up in line, Sonneteer for trainer Keith DeSormo, that he was chomping at the bit to get this horse into the starting gate. The only maiden within the field, and trying to become the first maiden to win the Kentucky Derby since Broker's Tip in 1933.
A very, very tough thing to overcome, but I like the fact that Keith DeSormo, he's based out here. We're out here a lot. We've heard that he wanted to get into the Derby. This is not an ownership group pushing him. He really believes this horse has a shot. He fits with these horses, except he's just never won a race yet.
Homebred for Calumet Farm. They've got 3 in total. By Midnight Lou out of a Half Hours mare. Now, Half Hours was a Grade 2 sprint winner. The Damn Hours went unraced, but she is a half to Grade 1 winner. Dublin, who was 7th in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, Midnight Lou, through his first 3 crops, average earnings $4.4 million a crop. That's about $70,000 a runner. He had a 2-year-old sale this year for $290,000, 14 times his stud fee. And last year had some yearlings sell for $325,000, $230,000, $300,000, and $400,000. Midnight Newt, better known as a sprinter, Britney. Sonneteer looks like a 2-turn horse with his running style, but you got to remember, even though Midnight Loot was a 1-turn horse, he himself was by Real Quiet, of course, winner of 2/3 of the Triple Crown. So there's some stamina influence in his pedigree.
And Sonneteer, quite the looker, hearing that he's handling everything perfectly out there at Churchill Downs. He's the type of horse, Christina Blacker mentioning this earlier, he will stop and pose for you. Dark bay, similar to the coloring of his sire, Midnight Loot. Top progeny, My Loot, Midnight Aria, Shaking It Up, and Gimme the Loot. He stands at Hillendale Farm for $2,000 in 2017. Now, as we touched on earlier, Hillendale Farms, they're going to be represented by Irish War Cry through their stallion Curlin, and just announced yesterday, Irish War Cry will stand at Hillendale Farm upon retirement. And such history with Hillendale. It is the final resting place of numerous champions and well-known horses, including Triple Crown winner Seattle Slew.
That's right. Another farm I need to make a call. John Secure, I'll be calling you up in the Keeneland Farm.
We're going to be making a lot of calls after this. Like, can we come visit these stallions? Tap it. I got to see him. I got to see him in person, right? Next up in line, the horse that is your first also eligible, Royal Mo by Uncle Mo, who did sire Nyquist, last year's Kentucky Derby winner. Now, this horse was a gutty 3rd in the Santa Anita Derby underneath Gary Stevens. Now, Gary Stevens and Victor Espinoza both landed out in Kentucky. Gary hoping to get into the gate with Royal Mo.
Yeah, they both took a private plane, I think courtesy of Jerry Moss there, but not a bad effort, finishing 3rd behind the stablemate. And Royal Mo, of course, well represented by Uncle Mo, who has turned out to be one of the hottest sires in the last couple of years.
Yeah, Royal Mo won the Robert Lewis beating Bluegrass winner Irap, bred by Brandywine Farm and was purchased for $300,000 in the Keeneland September yearling sale by Uncle Mo out of a St. Bellotto mare. Now, St. Bellotto took down, among other things, the Grade 2 Arlington Classic and was 4th in the Haskell. The dam Royal Irish Lass, she never broke her maiden, but she did produce Tara from the Cape, who was 4th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and is also half to Turf Stakes winner Irish Art.
21 first crop stakes winners. Do you hear that? 21 first crop stakes winners for Uncle Mo. That's unheard of. Through his first 2 crops, he's had 33 black type winners, 17 graded stakes winners, earnings of $14.9 million, and he's the #1 second crop sire, the #1 third crop sire, and he's ranked 9th nationally this year so far in the Stallion list, and in 2017 had 15 two-year-olds average $262,000, including a filly for $750,000 and one for $1.1 million. He has got off to just a fast track. He's on that sharp curve upward here, standing for $150,000 at Coolmore, and it goes back. He was champion 2-year-old. They snapped him up for the breeding rights, and he was always going to stand at Coolmore from a very early stage.
Just from that video, he looks like he'd get back onto the racetrack.
Yeah.
Looks fantastic. Uncle Mo, top progeny. He is already sired a Kentucky Derby winner in Nyquist. His other top progeny include Outwork and Mo Tom. Stands at Coolmore's Ashford stud for $150,000. The record-breaking champion freshman sire in 2015. That is Uncle Mo. Local Hero by Hard Spun sitting 22nd on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard right now for trainer Steve Asmussen. So that could be his 4th entrant. This horse never worse than 3rd and was 3rd in the Louisiana Derby and the Risen Star behind Gervin.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got some lengths to make up on Gervin, but he's sitting right on the bubble there and probably deserves a legitimate shot if he gets in. But one thing that is legitimate is his pedigree being by Hard Spun. True classic pedigree.
He was bred in Kentucky by Three Chimneys Farm and was purchased for $500,000 as a 2-year-old by E5 Racing Thoroughbreds, as you mentioned, by Hard Spun out of a St. Liam mare. Now, St. Liam, Horse of the Year, sired only 1 crop before passing away. The Dam Liam's Dream was a good sprinter, and you look further back in the pedigree on the female side, that's where you can find your distance.
Yeah, I mean, St. Liam Breeders' Cup Classic winner and Hard Spun, 9 Grade 1 winners. He's Danzig's last Grade 1 winning son. He sired more first crop stakes winners than any stallion ever. And there's no stallion around who stands for less than $75,000 that can match 9 Grade 1 winners since 2012. Yearlings last year sold for $328,000, $308,000, just to name a couple. And this year he had a 2-year-old sell for $500,000. Great pedigree. Hard Spun standing at Dolly America for $45,000. Great value.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, the value that you're getting, say for this horse who sold for $500,000, just bred to Hard Spun for $45,000. His top progeny, including Wicked Strong, Hardest Core, Hard Not to Like, and Questing, stands at Jonah Bell Farm, again, for $45,000. They'll represent it, Darley, this year with Thundersnow as well as Local Hero. Added to the list, Lexington, Kentucky, beautiful Darley form. That are your top 22 entrants. Those are including the 2 also eligibles for the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby. We are just 4 days away. I've had Derby fever for quite some time, but now I'm really feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, as we get close here, entries tomorrow, Wednesday morning at about, I think, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Need to keep an eye on the weather this week. That's been changing a lot the last couple of days, so that's going to play a big factor here if we get torrential rain. You know, with the Derby being so late and so much time in between races, you get the occasional shower. It makes no impact as far as track condition, but long-range forecasts speak for maybe a little bit of rain throughout the end of the week.
A couple horses within the field have already had experience on an off-track. A Classic Empire actually at the Churchill's Downs track. Gormley when he beat American Anthem in the Sham, you know, on an off-track. So a couple of horses, but that is something worth looking at. Which of these sires have done well on an off-track?
Exactly.
We'll pay attention to that.
We will. You need to have that wet track pedigree, and this just goes to show you this show. Look, many of us see owners and trainers and jockeys and their families rooting for these Derby runners, but there's a whole myriad of people back in Lexington, the people that bred the horse, the stallion you know, the farms that stand the stallions and the grooms and the help that work around these stallions and these broodmares. Everybody rooting for that Kentucky Derby win. There are lots of associations that go way, way back.
Absolutely. Are you a future pool type of guy? Do you put those future wagers in?
Yeah, once in a while when I feel pretty confident, yeah.
There was a pool that closed in November for the sires of the 143rd running, 2016-2017. This closed in November, the sire wager, and we see a couple horses, sires not represented in this year's Derby. Bodemeister, final odds of 30-1. Uncle Mo, 9-1. No surprise there. And Pioneer of the Nile, sire of American Pharaoh, 5-1. Also the sire of Classic Empire. That's going to do it for our Stallion Report for the 143rd running of the Kentucky Derby. A big thank you to all of those farms for their sponsorship, and best of luck to all of you in the 143rd Run for the Roses.